there's nothing sexier than a real nice vintage drum, in my opinion. So my choice of drums are these early 70s English-made Premier. So my father played the drums back in the 60s and early 70s, and when he was able to buy his first kit, he bought a set of these Premiers in the early 70s, a nice white marine pearl finish. When I was a kid, I always saw them in his sister's basement, and I was very interested in them. And then when I was a teenager and I started playing the drums, he let me have his drum kit, and I got to play on these great drums from a very young age. I've tried a lot of different drums, and I've played a lot of different drums, but I find myself coming back full circle to these ones. These are a 3-ply mahogany shell with beechwood reinforcement rings glued on. Now birch has got a bit of a higher tone, whereas the African mahogany has a warmer, deeper tone, which is really nice because you can tune these drums up really high and still get a nice, warm, low tone. And you can tune them really low and get a real nice, open rock sound, real boomy. So they're pretty versatile. You can see these lugs right here. It's just one lug. And it's designed to take all the load of the tension from the tension rods. When you have one rod pulling this way and the other one pulling this way, it takes all of the pressure off the wood shell itself. Now these lugs and these rims are also what Premier calls diamond plated. It's diamond plating. And it's basically brass with chrome over top, so chrome over brass. It's really, really high quality casting. The thing about these die cast tubes that I really like is that they're not very cumbersome. They're sort of low profile. And it just makes them a little lighter, a little sleeker. I mean, there's nothing sexier than a real nice vintage drum, in my opinion. Another thing about the lugs that I really like is that they're only held on with one hole drilled, which helps with resonance. A lot of toms, a lot of drums will have 2 lugs, one on the top, one on the bottom, and each lug will have 4 holes drilled. Also, these drums have their built-in tone controls, sort of an internal damper or muffler as some people call. And we also have these really pretty tension rods which don't have any thread on them. I'm going to give you an example of a snare drum. Here's the Premier 2000. Get a nice shot of the badge there. So the nice thing about this drum is it's got a parallel strainer. See if you can see on the inside there. We've got a bar that runs across the center of the drum, and it's made to take the load of the tension of the snares rather than the shell itself. As you can see, when I lift the strainer and the snares come up, the snares are still tensioned. And the snares also run across the whole diameter of the shell, which really maximizes the sound of the snares. It's a really nice feature. And these snares just snap into place rather than being tied on with a string or a rope. These are the drums that I really like. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a vintage buff. I do like Slingerland and Sonar as well. Some of their vintage drums are really nice, and I really like mahogany. And for the recordings, I've been using a small tom, an 8x12. Second tom is a 9x13. And then I have a 15x16 floor tom, which is about 1 inch shorter than a lot of floor toms from that time. Instead of a 16x16, we have a 15x16. And then a 14x22 inch bass drum, which is pretty standard size 5-piece kit. I also want to talk a little bit about who used these drums. So in the 60s and into the 70s, we had Mitch Mitchell was using them with the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and he used them to record the first album, Are You Experienced? I'm pretty sure hers were birch shell, because he was using them in the 60s before these mahogany shells were made. We also have Keith Moon, who used Premier throughout the 60s and into the 70s. And Keith was actually had a partnership with Premier and helped develop these drums in particular. Most notable recording with these mahogany shell drums would probably be Who's Next, by The Who, which is a real landmark album for the band and is still cited to this day as punk's first album. And it's a really nice example of the sound you can get off these beautiful drums. That's my little synopsis on these vintage early 70s Premier drums. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you again soon.